This is Optimal Health Daily, episode 1872. How to Fuel Yourself as an Athlete by Jessica Spendlove with idealnutrition.com.au. And I'm Dr. Neil, your very own personal narrator. I read to you from some of the best health and fitness blogs on the web, always with a bit of my commentary at the end. And I'm going to keep this intro nice and short, so let's get right to today's post as we optimize your life. How to Fuel Yourself as an Athlete by Jessica Spendlove with idealnutrition.com.au. As an athlete, it's not only about eating a healthy, balanced diet. Don't get me wrong, of course, that is important, but it's equally, if not more important, that you consider one main thing: performance. Well, what does that mean? It means optimizing intake to ensure you are well fueled and recovered for your training and performance requirements. An athlete's requirements could be considered abnormal when you compare them to the general population. After all, an athlete can train as much as 4 to 8 hours per day compared to the average person who may struggle to exercise that much in a week. For this reason, it's important to consider your individual needs and what your training and performance requirements are. Having good overall health and a strong immune system are keys to being a good athlete, but performance nutrition is about having many more tools in the toolbox compared to just meeting nutritional requirements set out by the standard guidelines. Here are my 5 priority areas to help fuel yourself as an athlete. 1. Periodize nutritional intake. One of the most important elements of an athlete's training program is periodization. This means some sessions or even whole training blocks are much harder than others. It will also include scheduled rest days and down weeks. These intermittent intensities, durations, and types of training are important to maximize performance and ensure optimal adaptation. For this reason, it's imperative that you are adjusting your intake to match your output. Different training sessions mean variations in nutritional requirements. For the harder, more intense sessions, your body will use more glucose and glycogen to fuel the session. This means you should be taking on more nutrition prior to and immediately after those key sessions to maximize training output and also optimize recovery. Some nutrients and foods should be adjusted more than others. For example, carbohydrate intake should be adjusted based on the type of training. This is different from protein intake, which should remain relatively constant day to day. 2. Maximize protein intake, timing, distribution, and type. Protein is the key nutrient involved in muscle growth. It is not only about the amount of protein you eat, but it's also about the type of proteins you consume, when you eat them, and the frequency. Providing the body with 4 to 6 doses of good quality, high biological value protein across the day will switch on the muscle protein synthesis pathway more frequently rather than just having 2 to 3 meals with large amounts of protein. This means you should ensure you are splitting some of your protein from lunch and dinner for breakfast and snacks. Research has also shown that the ability to gain lean muscle mass is elevated for 24 to 48 hours after a training session. This is why it's important for an athlete who is training most days to keep a relatively constant protein intake as their body is always in a state of recovery. 3. Adjust carbohydrate intake. Adjusting carbohydrate intake around training is one of the most important ways to help get the most out of training. It's also helpful for optimizing body composition. While protein intake should remain relatively consistent on all days, carbohydrate intake should not. Different training sessions require varying amounts of carbohydrate, and adjustments to intake both prior to training and also during training should be made accordingly. Training sessions which work at higher intensities require more fuel than sessions which work at lower intensities. 4. Meet and exceed the recommended fruit and vegetable intake. Fruits and vegetables are imperative for the human body to function at its best. Meeting micronutrient requirements are essential for supporting every metabolic function the body performs. Inadequate intakes can jeopardize metabolic function, which will reduce performance and limit results. A diet rich in fruits and vegetables also helps ensure good health and immunity. Consistency with training is key to improving performance, and nothing disrupts training like injuries and illness. This is an area where you should be referring to the guidelines to ensure you're not only meeting, but exceeding their 2 servings of fruit and 5 servings of vegetables. And 5, hydration. Human beings function better when they are hydrated. This includes cognitive function, physical performance, and metabolic efficiency. Hydration needs are highly individual due to variations in sweat rates between people, or even for the same person exercising in different conditions. There is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to replacing fluid losses from sweat. You should be aware of your own hydration requirements before, during, and after exercise. A few useful tips include: aim for pale yellow urine over the course of the day, start your training hydrated and avoid losing more than 2% body weight, and replace more than what you have lost in a session. The general rule is 120 to 150%. Focus on the areas that are easiest to change or will give you the biggest bang for your buck, meaning the biggest performance impact. Invest time into the process and ensure you understand the individual requirements needed for your sport and training. You just listened to the post titled, How to Fuel Yourself as an Athlete by Jessica Spendlove with idealnutrition.com.au. Dr. Neal here for my commentary. Look, I know I talk a lot about the importance of hydration, and today's author, Jessica, provided some great tips on how to make sure that you're consuming enough fluids before, during, and after your exercise sessions. But it's particularly important to hydrate after one of those really grueling sessions where you're really sore after. Remember, that soreness means that there was some muscle tearing happening. That muscle tearing is normal because after the body repairs those tears, the muscle ends up bigger and stronger. And remember, these are micro tears that we're referring to, not those big muscle tears that require surgery. Now, before that muscle repair and growth happens, we need to help the body clear some of the waste byproducts that formed because of that muscle micro tearing and are now floating around the bloodstream. If too many of these waste byproducts collect, then they can lead to damage to the kidneys or even the heart. Now, the fancy term for this is rhabdomyolysis. The cool kids call it rhabdo. Now, I don't want to worry you too much, but this is just a reminder about the importance of hydration and to be especially good about hydrating after a particularly grueling session. All right, that'll do it for the Monday episode. I hope you have a great start to your week, and I'll be back here tomorrow as usual, where your optimal life awaits.